Once upon a time there was Hua, a young girl who Moth picked up from a city that was destroyed by Honkai. After being rescued, she would work under the Moth, and with 1000 years of history, Fuhua have gone through phases of power and decline. So let's look at the rise of Fuhua, and the fall, and the rise, the fall, and the rise of her character. Our story begins with Fuhua's mentor, who is in no way related to another character despite being of the same looks and name. Not much is known about the previous era Himiko other than her rescuing Hua from her home city. This was the time before the 13 Moth Balls existed, so Himiko was pretty much the only one who looked after Hua who's under her squad. This would change when she took her to an event where Eden, still an idol, was performing at. Randomly she turned Super Saiyan and started killing people. She turned into a Hershey. Hua was lucky to have survived as she hid with Eden, who she rescued earlier. They hid for a bit until Kevin, now Mantis, came and brought things under control. This event left Hua isolated as she faced discrimination from her fellow colleagues as the sole survivor of her squad. One day she was sent out to do field testing with a few of her colleagues. They were there to test the new mass-produced Divine Key weapons. However, this was bullshit. The real reason they were sent out was to test out a different way to make someone Mantis by means of physical trauma. And Hua was like a young prodigy, surviving both Mantis and Swara. The first to have done it. We'll get to Swara later, but for now, think of it like a superhuman treatment. Anyways, the thing with Hua becoming Mantis was that she was able to take part in many major Moth operations, up until they were defeated at the battle on the moon, where she was forced into hiding along with the survivors. If we are to imagine her roles as if she was in an RPG game, hers would be that of a support. She may have superhuman strength and whatnot, but she probably will not hold a candle to the heavy hitters, like say Kelpass. So instead of being physically exceptional, she literally substituted it with her brains because she was given the illusionary mind manipulating weapon, the 8th Divine Key. The thing with this weapon is that it would give you brain damage if you used it too much, which was what happened when she used it to make an opening for her allies to take down the Hershey of Binding. 50,000 years later, Hua would awake from a long slumber to carry out Dr. May's plan that she was responsible for, codenamed Ember, basically kickstarting the new civilization by passing useful knowledge from her era. Spoiler, it did not go well. She had a few friends to keep her company, but here's the thing, her Mantis surgery gave her super regeneration, which made her immortal, unlike her friends. And when she lost them, she would get progressively more cold, more distant, to everything except for her increasing obsession with carrying out her duties. And this is why I considered immortality a curse, as being doomed to eternal loneliness is a fate worse than death. Getting sentimental aside, Fuhua was faced with a problem. The Honkai didn't like her fast-tracking the current era progression, as they would send out big boy raid bosses to hunt her down. She could defeat them herself along with her friends, but not only would that be a pain, it would also risk their lives in the process. Sometimes Stigma Awakened comes around to help out, but they are quite rare. Instead, it would be better if she could just train a select few locals to do the work for her. She would do this by teaching them Swara, which was mentioned earlier, and basically, it's like some kind of Esper power treatment where things just happen if you will it. And if you want a harder explanation, it's a way to allow randos to draw Honkai energy from the imaginary, so they can just do shit like this. It's supposed to be mimicking how Aponia can just make people believe something with her discipline. And just like discipline, Swara can also make people believe in that something too much. Note that in Fuhua's teaching of Swara, she makes use of Far East concepts like Ki or Life Force, usually done with some kind of chant like the infamous Blade of Taishuan, named after the school Fuhua created, a school that only trained about 7 people before a change in leadership happened. This goes into the 7 Swords visual novel, which hasn't been finished yet and never will be, not even officially translated into English. But if you wanna give it a read yourself, I'll link the original and the fan English translation channel below. Anyways, a lonely Mantis setting up a school to train people on fighting Honkai sounds pretty great on paper, but where it breaks down is in its execution, specifically their code of conduct set by Fuhua. No mercy for the corrupted. If there's so much as a hint or even a smidge of Honkai, it will be eradicated by Fuhua, as it is believed to be the only way to end their misery. But I mean, who can blame her after what she's seen? She burnt down many settlements and murdered the inhabitants, which went down just as well as you expect with the locals, even if most of them can't do anything to stop her, except for her disciples. They eventually turned on her and burned her school to the ground. The disciples thought they got her and left, but unfortunately for them, Fu Hua's mantis gene was one heavy lifter and pulled her back from the brink. But this ordeal still left her severely crippled, which according to Otto, meant that she lost her immortality and most of her powers. It's why you always see her needing some kind of battlesuits to fight in the game's early story. And speaking about Otto, he and Fu Hua made a deal at some point to have her work under him in exchange for Shixou's protection of Shenzhou. Which would set her on a spiral to do not so good things. She was sent to monitor and take care of Kiana to prepare for Otto's inevitable Hershey of the Void experiment. She even delivered her to him, which would kickstart a series of significant emotional events for players of this game called Final Lesson. This means she was partly responsible for Himiko's death, and that made me really mad about her. And if you would allow me to go on a tangent, before this event, she got a Honkai removal serum that would make all the health problems Himiko had go away. But not only did she not tell anyone about it, she f***ing hid it away. Imagine dedicating yourself to fighting Honkai and somehow orchestrating for the very thing you swore to destroy. Though this can kind of be explained by the fact that she lost her memories on more than one occasions, like her assassination and that one time in Second Eruption. So maybe she's not as fanatic as before. Anyway, sorry about that. She does eventually pull herself together, going as far as intervening on the right side this time, at the cost of a bullet through her head. But she still gave it her all by using her 8th Divine Key to guide Himiko to the Honkai removal serum that should have been for her but instead would be used on Kiana, which makes it even more sad and I'm gonna cry. Fu Hua was at her rock bottom, losing even her own body. Her sentience transfer to the Divine Key was used to follow her friends, mostly Kiana. She would continue guiding them, becoming some kind of guardian angel. For example, she can guide them to subscribe to Potato Almanac. Her experience would end when she was captured by Kevin while protecting Kiana against him, which would have been the end for her. But while this was going on, Otto had took Fu Hua's body with a hole in the head and healed it back to health. However, what woke up wasn't Hua. She instantly beaten the daylight out of him, which was great to see. She's much more straightforward, more violent, and more childish. She went to Kevin to retrieve the Fanghuan down Kevin had and awoken the Fu Hua inside, which then proceeded to get her into a furious debate on who's the real Fu Hua. Because on one side, Fu Hua transferred her sentience to her Divine Key to continue the struggle, but on the other hand, it's Otto that brought her back from the dead. And after a long deadlock, Hua would receive help from Kiana and Bronya in getting her body back. Mostly Kiana because Bronya spent half the fight eating dirt. And with Fu Hua returning to her body along with an extra Herrscher persona, she could not feel any better, except for sentience hawking all the Herrscher power. But on the bright side, she can enjoy retirement as she passed down the torch literally and metaphorically to her friends. And now, she has the freedom to do or to think about the things she wanted to do. But I doubt we'll see her become the focus again anytime soon. And don't forget about sentience. As a Herrscher who took Hua's body and got confused into being her, she was always quite badass when she's on screen. Maybe give her a body to go around so she wouldn't annoy Hua so much. But what do you think? I think her story was one of the more relatable ones, as things like loneliness is a universal experience people face. Anyways, thanks for watching to the end and I'll see you next time.